And I'll find the screen share. That's weird. Oh, can't it found. I'm not completely woken up yet, I don't think, to the new year, but there you go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to meeting number 16, we think it is, of the SingularityNET Archive workgroup meeting on the 10th of January, 2024. Happy New Year. SingularityNET Archive contains a history of the activities of the SingularityNET Ambassador Program. And our goal is to provide a collaborative platform for the SingularityNET Archive community to share knowledge, ideas, best practices, and we welcome contributions from anyone interested in SingularityNET, whether it's a new project, code example, or documentation. The way we run these meetings is through a GitHub stand-up. This is a meeting issue, and we have action items which should be populated, which we might discuss later, from a new tool that we're using. And then we have a link to a previous meeting and the project board, who's present, and any notes at the bottom. So I'll get started on the issues in order. They're ordered by, I think they're ordered by label. So the first thing we have is the governance Git book. Felix is not here, so I'm not sure if we have much to say on this.
I mean, honestly, we had a major update for this earmarked for this coming quarter. So, we've got some stuff in there about what we might do, but yeah, is it just a matter of talking to Felix and seeing? I don't think there's anything to add to
Right.
the board.
I'll just leave it empty then. If we don't, if we don't have anything to update in the notes, what our practice is just to leave it undated. So then we have some development issues. I think these are gone back to November, December, and January. Andre,
yeah.
Do you want to speak? Do you want to speak to all of them at once or individually?
I think I can go individually. Yeah, we just need to close this one.
Okay, if I go through each one and then maybe we can hop forward from do a status and maybe we can close it each one.
Yeah.
So if we start
this one,
yeah, go on.
Okay, this one is done. What I've done at the end of the list, I added not at the top. You'll see at the very last link is a link to all the commits. So
yeah, so
it shows the commits of all the months, all the commits that happened in that month. So I just added those.
That's really handy, actually. Yeah. So it shows you, well, there's quite a lot of work goes on as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot of work done there as well. So okay, should we just say
close that one?
That one's closed. I just won't, it's just obvious what it is. I'll just close that issue. Then we go to December.
We just need to add an amount, I think then we can close that one as well.
Okay, that's going to be 500, I think it was. And again, here's the list of work. It goes on and on. I won't go through it all. And then
on December one, I don't know about, maybe we should put this to January actually, but we were talking, weren't we, Andre, about how to kind of keep a record of the testing that's been done.
Yes, that is in January.
Right, cool.
I started, I think, the last issue, but it's mainly going to happen in January.
Okay, well, we'll get on to that. Let's close this December issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And then go
So
to January. So this is here we are now.
Yeah. So this last update I made, I created an issues page. Let me drop the, do you have the, I'm gonna drop a link in chat.
Okay.
You can look at how it looks. So this, it shows you the opened and closed issues, and then you can create an issue. I just want to get your feedback on the create new issue. So you'll see if you click on create new issue, I made an issue template.
Great. And that's the
So
format. That's the format you want the issue. That's the form. So you want the
Yes.
title and then the date as it is there, yeah?
Yeah. So I just want to run it by. It's short. Just want to know if this is fine like this. So if people have an issue with the tool, they can just click on that button, then they come here, and then they just quickly fill this in.
Okay, that's an issue.
That looks great.
This is an issue template.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So you go to sample issue, the labels will default to tool issue.
Yeah.
And
adds it to the project board. Everything's
yeah. And then you click what type of issue?
yes. Feature request or bug.
Template, performance, usability, integration, documentation,
I mean,
help.
that
or
looks really
security.
comprehensive, but should there be an other just in case?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's always
yeah.
another, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just put sample, just description. I'll just do this as a test, Andre. Okay. And then severity, medium, and so the work group will be, it's not drop down then. It's just, do you think
they can, I think I can make it drop down.
Yeah, it might be just so people can't type, otherwise people are typing in different
yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and then additional content is etc. Okay, and then you would just submit that.
Yes.
And there you go. Okay, I'll just leave that in there if you want to use it or delete it. So that does work. So on the status here, you've got triage, 2 triage, yeah.
I don't think I can. I'll look into it. Maybe I can change the status, but I will. If I start working on it, I'll change it to in progress.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to keep it to triage so that you have a work list to do. Yeah. So you have a backlog. Okay. Well, I suppose because sometimes you're going to get issues that are just mistakes like this one. So this, for example, is a test issue. So it would just go to triage and then you'd delete it probably, or just close it because it's Whereas if it was a real issue, it'd go to backlog, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And then go on.
I'll check in once a week at any issues, and then I'll move them.
Okay.
I mean, what I was thinking, Andre, is like the stuff that we looked at when you, me, and Onyeka met at the end of last year. Should I add those issues, or have you already?
No, that's I actually wanted to mention it now. I'm happy to add that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. I mean, I don't mind adding it as a backlog, but if you are up for doing it, then you do it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I want to test I'll test see if there's if everything goes smoothly. I think that was all on the issues. So yeah, I'll make those small changes to the form, and then I'll add all those changes we made. I'll go through that Google Docs and look at all the feature requests, bugs we fixed.
Okay, so let's add other to this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then to add drop down for work groups.
Yes, work groups.
Was there anything else that we were going to
No, I think that was it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just getting used to this Mac. Okay, so issue template that's created by Andre and reviewed at meeting. Okay, that gives so you're thinking to are you going to write? Well, I mean, it's not much of a process, so you got the process will be you will triage issues and then do it once a week. Yeah.
Yes, I'll look at the
Okay,
issues once.
so I'll just make a little note of that. So issue triage once a week, where new issues or well, where issues are sorted into status. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else we need to note on that, Andre? Do you think?
Just to note that Andre's gonna like catch up the backlog of issues that have already been solved.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
There was one thing, but I don't. I added a feature to export to PDF in this. I did that in December.
Right.
Oh, nice.
So you can test it out, Vanessa, and then we can.
Yeah.
But I think it looks quite good.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say on issues testing is that, of course,
Can you
Oh,
mute yourself, whoever that is? So.
hi, Slate. Can you mute yourself because you've got some background noise? Yeah, I was going to do some quite thorough testing with all the backlog that we've got of,
Yes.
and I haven't because the holidays just ran away with me. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've-
do you want, if I do find any issues, do you want me to use this? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That would be great. Yeah.
Excellent.
I managed to fix everything in those Google Docs. I think the only thing I still need to do is to make it mobile friendly. And I know there was one other thing. I'll just go through that doc again.
So you want to use this for? Do you want to use this for all development issues?
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah.
Okay, so then any subsequent development issues, you're referred to the issue template, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
And that would include well, yeah. So like for
And
example,
feature requests if people want to think of adding something.
yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah.
And I'm also thinking, Onyeka, I know you've been speaking to people about how they found the meeting summary templates, but people have also made some comments about tool development. So if there's anything in there, you could use this tool to add any issues that you've found, could you?
All right, cool.
Nice one.
The meet some and feature request. Yeah, because that's quite a handy place. I suppose it'd be quite handy for you as well, Andre, because you'll see what work needs to come, what feedback you're coming from people using, for example, the meeting summary templates. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've started going through using that as well for the archive work group. And I was wondering about that, about, as things come up, as issues come up. And this is a very organized way, a very systematic way to do that, sort of distinguish between a bug and a feature request and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great. I mean, the interface looks. Do you have open issues? If I read.
Yes. Yeah. So people can look at the open issues because if they see something, then they can see, okay, oh, somebody else requested this already.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me refresh this. Is this gonna? Yeah. There you go. So it's picked up the test issue, and then you have the closed issues. So Yeah, so people can just use the same interface then. So if you go to home, presumably that's the archive tool, submit meeting summary. I would need to sign in with Discord. Okay. I might not be signed in on this computer, so it might not work for me. Yeah,
So at least if they're busy filling in something in the tool, then they can create an issue right there.
Yeah, I'm not signed in on this computer, so I can't do that one. But but it would work that way. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else you want to has anyone else got any comments on tool developments?
Sort of, but we'll get to it when we get to quarterly report. I'm just thinking we need to maybe define a little bit where tool development is going this quarter, now that the meeting summaries process is kind of, obviously there's testing and there's, all the issues to look at. But yeah, it's kind of like what's next. So we'll get to it when we get to the quarterly report.
Okay, I'll close that one. Okay, so the next one is the only thing I might add to that is that the meeting issue didn't generate automatically for this meeting.
Yes.
Which I probably should raise as an issue on the audio issue system, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there was one issue, like I think it didn't generate because of something else, but the reason why I didn't add it to this project board, I found that problem, that it's because this project board is an organization project board and not a repo project board.
That's interesting.
That's why it had difficulty adding it. Like the actions I use it has trouble recognizing this organization project board.
Right. So I suppose is that a kind of because GitHub hasn't introduced that feature for organization boards, do you think?
It's just that action, whoever created that action didn't take into account that
right.
Organization project boards.
Yeah.
So there is a way to solve it, but it's a bit of a pain if we move this project board back into the SingularityNET-Archive repo.
I think given that all it takes, this solution, I mean, it's a bit annoying to create an issue, but it's we can put up with that for a while, I think. Until rather than because moving the repo might have other knock-on effects. I'm not sure.
Yes, that's the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'll keep my eye out for any changes. So if I see again it's possible to work again, then I'll get it working again.
That's great. I mean, for the moment, we'll just do it manually and just I'll live with it for a moment. That's fine. It's not too onerous. Okay, now we're on to community engagement label issues, which are, first one is publicizing work group meetings.
I mean, it's not even publicizing just the work group meetings. I think it's publicizing the tool as well that we've got in here. So I don't know if we need to change the title of the issue, but yeah, I've got some slides, and Andre, we just need to just check them and arrange what Tuesday we're going to. I mean, Peter, how was last night, and what space is there for people to come along and go, ta-da, we've done this, and talk about it in a town hall?
Well, there's definitely room for that. Yesterday, we had about, well, I think between 5 and 10 minutes only for like mini updates. Not all work group leads were present, but I did want to include some space for people to just, shout out cool stuff they were doing or about to do or needed help with. Main issue was on, or main topic, I should say, was on the redefining of the ambassador role itself. So, yeah, I don't know. During the last or one before last tunnel, quite a lot of people seem to agree that having weekly work group updates was a bit overkill. And so I'm thinking for now at least to keep that to a monthly rhythm, and then yeah, do provide 5 to 10 minutes for quick shout outs.
Okay, so we just kind of have to pick a Tuesday and tell you, really, don't we? And sort of go, can we do it on this
Yeah,
day?
something like a tool like this, as long as it doesn't go into like the 15-minute version, that's perfectly fine.
Oh no, I was thinking it would be actually nice to do it as a kind of, it's not just a 2-minute update. It's more like I'd like to, the slides I've put kind of share why it's important and how we work, how we see people using it, and we'd like to take some questions and stuff. So yeah, I suppose it would be like the town halls where like Tommy has shared that document about oh God, the title escapes me, but you know what I mean. So it's like a little feature.
Yeah, like a demo kind of intro. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine.
All right, nice one.
Yeah, planning wise, right now I don't have a form set up yet, but I'm planning to simply have a form where people can kind of request these kind of slots, and then
Nice.
ideally would also have an indication of like, well, this is 5 minutes, this is really more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
That'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm really reluctant to say next Tuesday because I don't think I can make town hall then. So I'm looking at 23rd. How are you fixed, Andre?
Yes, that's fine with me. That's good.
Nice. All right. Well, let's commit ourselves to that then.
Thank
If
you.
that's all right with you, Peter, if you're not aware of anything that other people want to do.
No, I'm not yet, at least, because I haven't pushed a form yet for it. So no, that's all good. Should be fine.
All right. Well, if we commit ourselves to that, and then yeah.
And that's a
can do it.
Tuesday, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's great.
And just to make sure it's the one at 7 p.m. UTC, Ambassador Town, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll just put that in there, 7 p.m. Yeah. So you're thinking you're going to make a fixed, regular, monthly event, Peter, for work group updates.
Well, yeah, ideally it would be like,
Yeah.
let's say, so that everybody knows, like last town hall of the month or something like that.
Yeah.
This is not set in stone right now.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good because then you could probably edit that into your video summary as well. Because you could say, okay, if you want to find out about our updates, just check on the end of the month or something like that. Yeah, so that'd be really great. Yeah. Okay, and I added notes there. Okay, so we've still got this issue open for the moment. Moving on to bounties. I'm not sure. It's been a while since we last discussed this. So the last the bounties agreed for people testing meeting summary templates.
Yeah, so we basically need to sort out payment to Onyeka for the work that he's done catching up with people. And we also need to pay the bounties to the people that have actually tested the meeting templates. And I think there's 5 of them. Just gonna have to look. So yeah, how do we, is that you, Andre, or what?
I can help with that, but
Shall I DM you after? Because I think it's all
yeah.
I think it's all agreed and it's all in here.
Okay.
I'm just scrolling up and yeah, so it was basically we said $50 to the people that tested it, and we had Tommy and Fly on the list and they didn't. Slate did, onboarding did, Kenichi did, and TiVo did, and that was it, I think, wasn't it?
Okay.
Onyeka, can you remember if there was anyone else?
Yeah, I think Judith did.
Ah,
Rowan.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I guess technically, Stephen, you did as well. But
I'm still in progress. Yeah. I don't get paid until I finish the job because I'm still
Yeah, because you're just so slow. Yeah.
I'm so slow. No, I've been
I
going.
am
Yeah, go on.
just editing that post on the issues. I'm going to take Tommy and Fly off and add $50 to Judith.
Okay. Does that come out of our existing wallet balance or?
I believe so.
Okay. Right. So from.
Okay. And then, yeah, so we need to get those paid because people have, definitely given us good feedback.
Can you put the nature of that into the metadata, Andre?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can. What do I need to put in the metadata?
Just a description of what the payment's for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add metadata description of just so that if we ever come back from a budgeting perspective, we see why something went that way.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else out on? Well, I suppose this is it, isn't it? The bounties are in progress, so we're
Well,
still.
yeah, but I think we should probably leave the issue open because we are wanting to look at other bounties that we could set up. So, and we've had a couple of ideas, like, things like checking meeting summaries for errors and blah, blah, blah. So I would suggest next meeting. We need to
Also
look.
we haven't paid everyone as well, so we need to sort of check that everyone's been paid and
Yeah.
so
I just pay these people with these amounts.
right. Okay.
At onboarding, Kenichi, Devo, Judith, Onyeka. Who do I pay at onboarding? Who do we pay at onboarding?
Vanessa, do you know?
Vanessa.
Supra, I guess. I think it
Supra.
would just go. Yeah, I'll change that actually. Yeah. And then she can redistribute it if needed.
No, absolutely keep the issue open because it's kind of an ongoing. It looks like it might become part of our process.
Yeah, definitely.
Presumably that's an estimate, that 400. I'm not sure. So I'll just put it forward to next week. Oh no, sorry, next meeting. Sorry. And keep it open. Okay, if there's nothing more on bounties, I'll move on to the next community.
Just before we do, have I left off Rojo? Was Onyeka, was he saying that it's going to Judith, not to him?
So Roger said that he wasn't the one actually taking the minute notes. So he assigned the task to Judith.
Nice.
So
Okay.
she was doing the video work group and marketing give.
All right, cool. So there's not another 50 to Rojo on top, is there?
I don't know. I think since it's still for his work group, I don't
All
know.
right. Cool. All right, thanks.
What's for video work group? Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, I'll now move on to the next issue, which is sorry. Is there anything more on?
If we do, okay. Sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. I was just okay. The next issue is guidance notes and templates for meeting summaries, which we touched upon. And we were just discussing how we've been testing those, and also how you've created an issue template for it, Andre, as well. So I suppose this is more feedback from the users of the templates then, Vanessa?
Yeah, this issue is actually about the templates rather than the meeting summary tool that developed out of them. So
Right.
actually, I think that maybe all the stuff we were just talking about on bounties probably should be in here because that was what those bounties were for. So I'll tweak that after the
I can
meeting.
create a link to this from there.
Yeah, you can.
So
All right. That's good.
I'll just copy a
But
link.
then I sort of think maybe once that's paid and we come back to it next week and go, it's paid and it's cleared up, this issue could be closed. I think.
Disgusting bounties issue. I'll just okay, that should fill out. Yeah, I'll just actually make it more clear if I do better. Yeah, slightly better. There you go. Okay, so it might be closed next meeting, do you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'll put a note there. Okay.
Yeah, that issue's been quite a journey.
Yeah, God. But you know,
All good.
we've got quite a nice solution coming up. So yeah. Okay. Now where are we? We're on to the archive itself now. And this we have
Can we just honestly, because I've been trying to do it with the meeting tool and then I got a little bit sidetracked. So I think we're going to have to come back to
right.
November and I'll have to open the December issue and all. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bit of a mess at the moment and I apologise, but I will get on it in the next few days. So I would suggest we just leave it for now.
Okay, okay. If there's no update on an issue, we'll just leave it blank. And then we'll move on to
And there is a
report.
December issue, but I haven't, it's in backlog. So I'll
Right,
have to-
because of
yeah.
some of the holidays. Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
get next meeting. We'll expect
That sounds really stern.
England expects. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. Okay. I'm a bit confused by these. Okay, so the archive. Okay, right. We have two issues for budget. One was to finalize the budget for Q4, which I suppose this is a reference issue, isn't it? I'm trying to remember now.
I mean, I I sort of think it's a bit weird because we never, as far as I know, we never completely said that work groups' budgets for Q4 were finalised and definite. But
Okay.
I think we're kind of assuming that they are, and we just need to make sure that all the
Okay.
things that we budgeted for, we have done and submitted, and closed issues. And so I think I'm at fault there because obviously November and December archives need to be submitted. And then there are a few other things that were in our budget that we need to close. And, things like tool development for December and November need to
Right. So to put in
submit
a budget request for, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we still have budget requests to put in for Q4.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why that's open. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll just so some Q4 2023 budget requests to be submitted. And that
So
goes,
shall we all liaise async about that?
yeah,
Because who's got an open issue that needs to be submitted?
yeah,
It needs to be you that does it, Stephen, but we just need to tell you when it's ready.
yeah. I need to check on that. It goes through TiVo, I think it does, doesn't it? Yeah. So okay. So and that's it. So that'll be closed once we do that. Once I've done that, and once I've got all the budget requests sorted out. And then the other one is just for the Q1, which is just going to be there for the same reason, isn't it? So, that'll be just there as an administrative issue.
Sort of, but I think I don't think we know what the process is for submitting budget requests for Q1. Peter, have you got any insights on that?
It's literally just submitted. I mean,
All right, so it's all right.
Yeah, so it's the same process. Yeah. I suppose that, this is just the administrative issues for keeping track of, how we're doing with submitting fund requests. I suppose that's what these issues are for. Yeah.
But I think also it needs to be about actually submitting the budget. So
Right.
have other work groups done it already, Peter? Or are we really behind?
yeah, there's some. Most are still in process of getting finalized. This Thursday, so tomorrow, Treasury meeting, we'll have a bit of an overview of what's ready and what's not.
All right.
Okay.
It wouldn't be the last one standing still.
Okay. I think we just have a one or two Q4, don't we? That are
I
not.
mean,
Yeah.
no, but I think they will be. So I think we've got an idea which we talked about in a sort of async conversation about what we want to put in our budget for Q1 next
Okay.
year. So maybe we just need to finalize that and put it in.
Okay. So I'll put a note on Q1 then. Audit. Yeah. Async. Discussions in progress. Okay.
Because it's just basically things like the monthly
Expected.
cost of archiving goes down, but then other things might go up, and so we just need to sort it out really.
So expected costs and issues. Okay. That's okay. Then we have this was the preparation for the quarterly report. So presumably, did you say a draft is, well, it's now a draft, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of better than a draft now. If you want to click, I'm sort of thinking that this is where we might need to talk about that whole question of development costs and what development we're going to be doing in Q1.
Right.
This quarter. So what I've done is I've just summarized, like in the Q3 report, we said, oh, this is what we're planning to do. So I've just gone, did we? And then I've just done similar to the previous quarter report, just all the things that we actually did do. So, meetings and development, archive management. I haven't, the one in red, I have to just check it through. So I'm kind of almost done with it. But it was definitely on the list to do in this quarter. And then our plans for Q1 2024 include, and I've just put that in red because I'm wondering, Andre, do you have thoughts about exactly where development would be going in this quarter? Like, is there anything specific you want to tick off?
We'll have to talk to UBO. I made the API available to him. There were some issues, but I fixed it. So I'm still waiting for him to get back to me. So I think he'll be developing some stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll just do maintenance on the form too. And he'll develop the AI stuff.
Nice.
I'll just type that in there for the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's remind you.
But then just looking at what else I've put in our plans, do people agree? I mean, shall I go through?
Well,
Or
the
do you just
plans
wanna
for
read it?
Q1, yeah. Yeah, go on, go
But
for
I've
it.
put what I think we've all said in meetings. I mean, the archives backlog, this is like tidying up and refining the corpus so that it matches, the right structure and the right headings and all that, because we know that some of it in the past, in the early stages doesn't. So this would be to make it searchable by an AI, and we said it could be done by bounties, possibly. We've earmarked an update to the governance Git book for this quarter because we couldn't fit it into the funding that we had for Q4, so we shifted it to Q1. This whole concept of developing a tag taxonomy, we put in that funding proposal that didn't get funded. So we have looked at, could we do some of it, or could we do, the basics within our work group
Right.
funding. I think we could, but do people think that we should? And then we probably need to rethink our kind of workflow to work with the meeting summaries tool. And yeah, we'll be sharing and publicizing the tool. And then if you just scroll back up to the top, the fourth bullet point down, we said that we would begin to explore the possibility of offering an archiving process to other parts of the SNet ecosystem. So in the quarter just gone, quarter four, we did what we said we'd do, which is test the process and discuss what we could share. But we also have looked at how it works to support good decision making and support recording decisions and action items. So we've done that, and I think we've made tweaks to the tool on the basis of that.
Hmm.
So it feels like now it is something that in this quarter we could talk to other parts of the SNet ecosystem and kind of go, are you interested in this? So
Do you think that's something people would go for, Peter? To use similar sort of processes that we're developing here in other parts of the ecosystem? Hello?
As in parts of the ecosystem, as in a spin-off project? Or
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think we've had this conversation in a previous meeting like ages ago, and we kind of concluded that maybe, but we
Maybe.
could at least make them aware of it, you know?
Absolutely.
I suppose in a chicken and egg situation, we might have to do a bit of a sales job, or to or just to reach out to also to let people know we exist. Maybe it's something that can go through. Gosh, I'm trying to think like Grace and Daniel Rebar, not Daniel Rebar. Who am I thinking of?
Ospina?
Yes, Ospina, yeah.
Oh, Daniel Ospina. Okay.
Yeah, and
Like
Yeah.
the supervisory council?
the supervisory council. Yeah, I mean, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking of them in terms of just to just sort of publicize it, or to say, maybe that's a function they can do. I'm not sure. Just an idea, that's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But I think, this is work that needs, it takes time, so it should be on our Q1 budget.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to do a bit of publicising.
Yeah, and
If
publicize the
people
tools.
agree.
And I'll put in approach supervisory council just in case that's an idea. If it's not, maybe they don't want to do anything, but it's just an idea. It's just so that, I mean, I think maybe their brief, because to reach all parts of the ecosystem. For the tagging, given that we weren't funded for that proposal, are we thinking of budgeting for that tagging, some reduced form of tagging?
Yeah, when the conversation that we three had about like potential budget for Q1, we did suggest it wouldn't be as extensive as we would have done otherwise, but
yeah. Okay, so that's an option for Q1. Okay. And the other thing that occurred to me was the refining the corpus. Should that be informed by how we're doing the meeting summaries a little bit?
Oh, it is. That's the point. That's why we're
right.
it.
Okay.
Because some of the material that we've got in the past didn't really conform to what's needed, so we do need to tidy it up. So
okay. So meeting summary content. Okay, so that's a great thing to talk about from our quarterly report, because it shows how we're evolving, because our new meeting summary templates has helped refine our archival process, would you say, Vanessa?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay, so I'll just put that as a note there in case we need or refine our archival process. That's all really good. I mean, it shows how far we've come, actually. Okay, that's great. So
the only other thing that we had potentially, oh no, we didn't. Sorry, ignore me. Was the actual backlog, like the longs.
yeah,
We did say, that we'll put it into this quarter. So I think
Yeah.
that should probably be added to that list if you because that was your task.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's going to be again reduced and just to identify what can be done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's complete archival backlog.
I mean, I think what we said when we looked about projections is that we'd pay half of it in quarter 1 and half of it in quarter 2 because
Right.
it's going to take a little while. So yeah.
I mean, I kind of put it on the back wall and the backlog because of priorities, really, I suppose, and like the meeting summaries. I mean, I suppose the backlog is going to be informed also, as well by that meeting summary template, because it's going to sort of like, but what I would like to capture is just a minimum of and I'll probably just take as I said previously, take the videos that were produced from the beginning of the ambassadors program as a guide,
exactly,
and just to use those. Just going to be really minimal, but and I'm going to be thinking about what would be useful to know from an LLM perspective and from a meeting summary perspective. That's all. So literally, was a meeting held this date? What was it about in maybe one line or something, and that's it. On who the participants are, maybe, something like that. So that's all it would be. I'll put minimal to make that clear. Is there anything else you want to discuss on the quarterly report? Are we looking to finalize this in the next few weeks then?
Few weeks. It's due now.
Due now. Oh my God.
If everyone's happy with it, and if nobody is aware of anything that I've missed out, then we could just submit it. I mean, what I will do is I'll do that final little thing to update the ambassador's Git book, because I just have to tweak a couple of things. But is everybody, I don't know if we want a show of hands or do we want to speak now or forever hold your peace? But is everyone happy?
Yeah, I just have one question. Should there be amounts on that report or not?
Oh, no, you see, I did wonder about trying to link it to our budget, and that's what I want to do next time, but it just feels a bit, I don't know, it felt fiddly.
I think that
And
might
it's
also
like, I'm
complicate.
taking too long on this. All people want is a report. So,
I mean, do you find this satisfactory, Peter? I mean, I thought the point of the quarterly reports is kind of to provide a good summary of what work groups are doing. Yeah. So does this help with that, Peter?
Yes, it does.
Good. Okay. So, and I think that what Vanessa was talking about, linking it to budget, could complicate or muddy the water a little bit, because our budget discussions seem to have a life of their own.
I think I could do it
Yeah,
next time, but it just felt a little bit like I was spending a lot of time trying to map up, because some of the things that we do cross over several budget items, if you see what I mean. So maybe we just need to be a bit stricter about, okay, this is a budget item, so therefore it needs an issue associated with it, and one issue associated with it. I mean, you've seen in this meeting where we've talked about bounties and we've talked about the meeting summaries template, and that budget item is spread across 2 issues.
I suppose in my mind, I've got it as a kind of great way to primarily about what we've achieved, what we've done, and just in a descriptive way. And I think the financial aspect, yes, it is relevant, but I think it should be more like a footnote, really.
I don't know, I'd like to see it a lot more tightly tied to our budget, but we
okay.
can worry about that when we get to the quarterly report for quarter 1, can't we? I mean, has anybody got any views on that? Should it be like a financial statement as well, or is it just, oh, we've been doing this?
Yeah.
We don't put too strict requirements. Yeah, that being said, it would be where possible, if you can tie it to budget, sure, that's great. But there's no It's not mandatory, let's say.
No, I think I'm arguing for it, and whenever we have a treasury meeting, I'm going, oh, we should do this. So I'm just like, yeah, I should probably do it myself. Which,
Yeah.
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 I
But
think
also,
it's a
I
nice
just
to
think,
have.
what, sorry?
I think it's a nice to have.
Yeah, but not essential. But I also think it kind of relates to how we organize our project board as well.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Because
it should be that there is one issue for a budget item.
yeah,
Oh, God, that's reminded me of that conversation that we had a few days ago, Stephen, about how the meeting issue should contain action items and
yeah. Let me just capture the come back.
sorry.
So budget items should. I mean, that's the other thing. Budget items should relate to budget costs. So
Okay.
what I mean is that each budget issue, sorry,
Issues,
each
not
issue,
items. Right.
budget, not much, issues,
Issues should relate to budget items.
issues should relate to budget cost,
or budget items even, or budget
budget, to budget lines. I'm thinking of, I
Yeah,
suppose, yeah,
yeah.
item lines, and I'm not sure how consistent we've been on that. So we try to
Not bad.
be. We're not bad, but it gives us here. We see, for example, we have an amount which.
Yeah.
We're still a bit hit and miss on that. So we need to
I
sort of look
think
at that.
it's the issue. God, the problem is when a task kind of has several elements and they might have been costed under different budget items. Say, like, for example, all the stuff around the tool and the meeting summaries, some of it's costed around the meeting summaries template issue, some of it's costed in Andre's monthly development, and some of it's in bounties. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Okay. So what's the other thing you were mentioning?
Oh, I don't think that is in this issue,
Okay.
but it was just a general point about how we were saying that for the purposes of documentation, action items and decision items should go in the meeting issue. Do you remember?
Yeah. So I'll put this here actually. The moment until because the text of this is carried forward. So
Oh no, so it should just be a comment below, shouldn't it, really?
no, but comments aren't carried forward. So
Oh, okay.
so I'll just put this here so we I'll just put to consider for the moment.
Okay.
So this is related to how the meeting summary template works, isn't it? So and this is what I kind of like. I haven't finished doing it, Andre, but when I was updating archive work group meetings using the meeting summary template, it kind of like forces you. It kind of lends itself to decision items and things like that. Yeah, or so. So I was thinking if that could be populated here. So here you would have decision items and decision and action items, I think. Items to be in main meeting issue, and that could be possibly populated from possibly populated from the template. I'm not sure. In future,
Possible. I'll look into it.
Don't make it
it is
urgent, but just
possible.
it's just something that occurred to us. But certainly I'm going to make that part of my practice. So so every time I archive an archive work group meeting, I'll put the action and decision items in the meeting issue, Vanessa. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, that'd be right.
Yeah, and the way it works, it has to go into the body of the issue.
Okay.
Because it's carried forward. So
Yes.
to be added. You know what I mean, Andrew, don't you? To be added to
Do you
the
need it to be carried forward though? I'm not
yeah,
sure
yeah,
why
you
you
do.
would.
So it's so that I know. Well, otherwise I'll be checking back and forth between historical records. So it just carries it forward, and I
Oh,
can
sorry.
just amend it to add it to
Except that, but sorry, I'm just a bit confused because action items and decision items are on a meeting by meeting basis. So you wouldn't want to carry forward action items from meeting 16 into meeting 20. I don't.
No, it just carries it forward to the next meeting.
Okay.
You know, and it's so that you can then amend it. Anything I amend here, like in this text box here, will be carried forward to the next meeting.
Okay. Okay.
But then again, so then I can just update it directly. Do you see? Okay. I'll put that there. Okay. The final thing we have is just pretty lost a bit. Ambassador's Git book. I'm really not sure where we are.
Yeah,
with this.
I just owe an apology that it's on my list of things I had to do in quarter 4,
Yeah.
and I've half done it. So by next meeting we can close this issue, I think.
Okay. I'll just leave it uncommented
Yeah.
for now. Unless anyone has got any other comments or observations on the Ambassador's Git book.
I mean, I think it'll probably need another little update when we have clarified, because Peter, isn't it right that discussions on the roles and levels is going to be resurrected this quarter? So
yeah, absolutely. That
It-
happened yesterday during the tunnel, actually. It's,
yeah, yeah. Is there any
it won't take
decisions?
too much.
Was there decisions made in the town hall, or is it still
No, not
pending?
really. It was more a temperature check
All
during
right.
what was it called? During Process Guild related call yesterday. We played around with some numbers, and
Okay.
actually related to that, it did pop up that the way Archive Work Group puts in a fund request,
Yeah.
this doesn't include Jimbo tokens, and it's like the way it's put onto DWork doesn't automatically translate into a proper way of capturing contributions or how to say, like that actually. So yeah, I'm not sure what if it would be doable to put like once the task goes onto DWork with the fund request to potentially include some estimate of hours. Like it doesn't need to be accurate, like super accurate, but it's in a way it's just not capturing any Jimbles.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would raise an issue that maybe putting under the radar here, or certainly I would raise it, is that it assumes that we recognize contribution per hour, Peter, and estimates based on hour, and that goes back to the fundamentals of gimbals. That is a gimbal a representation of contribution on an hourly basis? Is that what they're saying? Is that what you're saying?
That's the current model we're working with.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say that's a flawed model of contribution.
Yeah, it is at least some level of capturing.
Yeah, but
I
it's
mean,
yeah. Go
what
on.
if we were to say that we feel that anybody who comes to these meetings makes an equal contribution, and it's not about how much time you put in, it's about the fact that you're here. So we just put in.
Well, I mean, it's not so much. Well, I guess it's also about the meetings, but mostly about the work. You know, like where the fund request gets put in.
Yeah, but Peter, this is a long. It's not, it's also a philosophical discussion, and this is also about the nature of what we're trying to do here with Ambassadors Work Group and everything. So, really, I'd like to know: is there a decision here on ambassadors to say that you must have hourly rates, because that is actually suggesting a certain interpretation of work contribution. Now, our view is, or our view has been, that work contribution is based on contribution, is what people contribute, not the time they put in. Okay, it's actually the cost of
I get that.
contribution.
I do, however, feel that that discussion is bigger than
Yeah,
getting
but
a system of
it's
opening up
bigger,
the
but it's
ambassador
bigger,
role.
but you're kind of like saying, well, we're not fulfilling the function. You're not fulfilling the gimbal function. I would push back and say the gimbal function is not fulfilling our needs. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So
Sure. Well, the way we arrive at gimbal is that basically we want to figure out a distinction, like the whole roles and levels discussion now kind of moved to get it simple. Just make a distinction between the people popping up and people that are long-term contributors. And for that, we do need to look at some data, and the way our system is set up right now with the treasury system, Gimbals is a
appeal to data. Another thing, an appeal to data is often raised, and I would say that we are quite data rich, the archive work group, particularly in terms of contribution. So this is not about us not having the right data. It's just about having data that is not measured in terms of time. So again, I would push back and say, okay, people who are responsible for gimbals, try to accommodate things that are not hourly rates. There's a whole there's a good arguments for this, and I'm really sorry to be a bit, it's a bit of a bugbear for me, because there's a whole package of there's a whole burden with hourly rates. It kind of makes lots of assumptions and forces people into certain roles, and expectations of their work, which I think is just not appropriate for decentralized governance and decentralized working. In a decentralized environment, people's contribution matters, not the time they put in. You see the difference? If you can't understand the difference there's something wrong. And I'd like an answer to that from the other participants in the Ambassadors Program.
Well, it's in a way, I agree there's a difference there. The only thing we're trying to do is to get some kind of input on who is making contributions. Then our work group doesn't specify anything.
Well, we do. We do specify who's making contributions. We're very data rich in that, aren't we? It's just that the way we do it isn't the way that they want to do it, and people who are measuring things by time. That's my point. I'm not going to get shanghaied into recording time unless there's an absolute decision from the group that you want to do that. Do you see what I mean? So there's a bit of
well, there's no absolute decision at all right now. It was yesterday during panel was a temperature check, and basically one of the criteria we're working with or looking at to work with right now, as it's a draft and ongoing discussion, is like, well, let's make sure we don't include somebody that just pops into one meeting for the very first time. We wouldn't want them to have the same level of say as somebody who's been around for half a year and doing a lot of stuff. That's basically the distinction we want to make, like random person and long-term contributor.
Yeah, but that doesn't relate to hours, though, does it?
I mean, it may do for some groups, but it probably doesn't for this group. So I'm sort of wondering, do we need them to be comparable across work groups? Because if we don't really, then this isn't a problem. And
well, if you can somehow report on that's where I was going. Like, basically, the way we approach this, like to figure out who's a long-term contributor, would be looking at hours. It's like for the past half hour right now, year, I should say, we were looking at 12 hours of contributions, which is not a high bar at all.
But
and I think
for me, I get that, but I really think that 12 hours of contributions could be really negligible and not particularly useful and not in any depth. Do you know what I mean? You could have just sat in a meeting.
I'm gonna have to completely dismiss that. It's about events of contribution, not time. So if you look, for example, look at what we do here on our GitHub board. I mean, you can capture when people have participated, not necessarily for how long. So a measure of long-term contributions could be, I have contributed since, say, 2 years ago or a year ago. Okay. It doesn't say that if I have to account for every single hour, then that's going to be really misleading, because I might often, and this is how often the hourly rate is distorts contribution, also in the real world, by the way. Okay, so this is also
but that's quite a complication of the issue, because then we would need to look at every single contribution and kind of somehow transfer that into an estimate of value, and then come up with an arbitrary limit of value which people would need to exceed.
Well, it's
I mean,
not.
would
It's
it be
not,
possible for that to be done on a work group by work group basis? Like if a work group was to say, well, look, this person, and it's awkward because it becomes then really personal, but if a work group could say, well, this person turns up to meetings, never really does any work, and just sits there. So their contribution is less than somebody who comes every other meeting but does loads of work.
Yeah,
the
sure.
answer is
But
quite
And
straightforward,
And
Pete.
it's not about the time and the amount of time you spend. It's about the work group saying, well, this person's contribution is of value.
yeah, I
And
get it.
it's
The
really
idea would
personal
be
and hard, but you know.
no, but the idea would be to keep it relatively straightforward and simple, and simply have some distinguishing factor between a random person showing up and somebody who's a long-term contributor.
That
And
exists,
that the
though.
bar for being
I can,
included in the group is so low in a way
yeah,
that it's sure we can have this whole discussion about how we deal with these things.
yeah.
The
But
thing is,
I'd
it's
really
sorry,
like,
sorry,
quite logic.
I'd really like to hear from some of the other people who are in this meeting on what they think about whether
yeah, I'm sorry, but
time.
I'll just say one more piece and then I mean, I
Right.
feel really frustrated about this because a simple system exists already. Okay, the a task is costed by the nature of the task. So, for example, tool development in January that Andre does, that has a cost associated with it. Yeah, it's not a time; it's a cost. The reason why it doesn't have a time associated with it is because we're not into kind of you know, just cutting things up like that, because some people will put more effort in rather than less effort to actually achieve the same similar ends. So it's more equitable to say this person has delivered this task, okay, not this. Otherwise you're saying what hours are you delivering? So your worth, Peter, for example, would be how many hours have you delivered? That's your worth. Now that is not a measurement of worth, or well, it's just a measure of, you know, the amount of times you turned up for certain events. It's not your contribution. So I would say, you know, where is the record of contribution, not the record of hours? Sorry, I was shut up now.
No, it's fair. And right now in the current, again, draft working version of this, we looked both at people having received a bunch of gimbals and having received a smaller amount of AGIX. And yes, that does use time as a standard. And yes, I am aware of your disagreeing with the concept. If somehow Archive Workgroup is willing to present on a rolling basis to provide an updated status on who's contributing, sure, that could work. But for pretty much all the other work groups, the DWork system, the treasury system, is kind of keeping track of it, and does provide a tool to filter between a random person and somebody's long-term contributor. So that's why that's the current approach, and I'm very open to having this discussion, but it would also need to be somewhat practical, I feel.
It sort of feels to me that this might be, I mean, where are these discussions going on? Is it strategy, or which work group is kind of talking about this?
Well, I just pushed it yesterday during town hall.
Yeah. No, I'm just feeling like this might be out of scope of this meeting. Like, I don't know.
That's
I
true.
would really like to hear what like Onyeka and Slate and Andre are feeling about this.
Yeah, you could measure by tasks as well. Right, you can look at how many tasks the person has done. But I think the issue maybe is the data isn't really captured in the treasury system because we just do a chunk of fund requests. I think maybe that's the issue, because the data isn't transferred that way, unless I think maybe, I know Stephen shares that table with Tevo. So the data can be captured, and then we can just measure by tasks. But we can always just look back, because we have all the data here now. But going forward, there is a way to capture these data. When we make this func request, we just put it in the metadata. And then the system can pick that up, the tasks. But it's something we'll have to build.
Yeah, I mean, I think I provide to TiVo, basically I can just do a spreadsheet export of the issue board that we have, that we've just been through. And that if we just have a cost item per issue, which we referred to in this meeting, then that will just show, that shows the data, Peter. It shows, for example, okay, let's say ambassadors get book or governance get book or bounties, you know, that will have a cost associated with it, and also a time period as well associated, to start and a due date and an end date. And I export that, and it has a cost at the end. It doesn't have hours, okay? And that will then, I can then put that in a spreadsheet and then give that to TiVo. That has been sufficient. Hours would bring in a different philosophy and way of assessing contribution. The way we're assessing contribution is through task, not through time.
Yeah, I get that. But the system we're trying to implement would be Ambassador Program wide. And well, the discussion in itself, to me, it's super interesting. And I'm on a lot of things agreeing. However, right now, most of the things on DWork are captured with task points based with including task points on an estimate of the amount of time spent. And I get that you disagree with it and would rather see a system for value capturing.
Also, you're comparing this. DWork is what is it? A DAP, okay, that's produced. That was I saw it at the beginning. We actually asked the development team to incorporate ADA contributions, which it couldn't do, and it can't. Couldn't do because it's not commercially viable. You know, GitHub is used by what, millions of people worldwide, and why is it used in the way it's used? It's used because it's contribution based. It's not a cookie cutter hourly estimate tool. So I'm not going to take lectures from DWork on the contribution here. So I would ask the question, why are you using DWork?
Yeah. Nobody's arguing that you should take lectures from DWork. I don't.
No, but there's a kind of asymmetry going on here, Peter, where you're referring to this needs to be work for everyone. Well, it's not working for everyone. It's not working for a contribution-based approach. It's working for an hourly cookie cutter approach.
Yeah, I agree. That's why when I started, I flagged this being now, this wouldn't work, and there would be for some kind of input coming from archive work group, like who are people that are contributing, so that if we make a distinction between random people and long-term contributors, we do have the input.
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
I don't want to make it seem like, I mean, it is. I suppose I'm getting a bit. It is interesting also because it's like a philosophical aspect to this. There's a kind of how do you want to run a DAO kind of aspect to this, you see. So because it's about the nature of contribution itself, isn't it? And it's also within an open source context as well, by the way. So I would put this back to the other part of the group to say, if you want something to be universal, then it should be measuring contribution, not time. So the question is, how do you get a gimbal to accommodate the recognition of contribution, not time?
Yeah, exactly. And in my mind, this would create tons of micromanaging, like literal tons, and a lot of overhead for every task. You would somehow need to establish what is the contribution and how do we even measure that, and in what kind of measure do we?
See, I don't know about that. I don't know if it would create loads of overhead, because you could have a situation where a work group said, actually, we will periodically just have a quick chat about who we think has contributed, and it's not going to be measurable, it's going to be more notional. And they would sit down and they'd go, well, clearly so and so has contributed and so hasn't. The only problem I have with that is it's really personal, and it's like it's tantamount to saying you have contributed more than you, which doesn't feel very good for people. But I think also it could be about a work group having, you know, sitting down, having the conversation at the start about what counts as contribution in this work group. and then coming up with a little list. And like, you know, it's almost like then you could just tick it off and go, well, this person has done this. So like, you know, for some of the more talky type meetings, going along and saying something is kind of what they do. So if you haven't turned up for meetings and said something, you haven't contributed. Whereas in other groups, it's work mainly that goes on outside the meetings. So that would be what you'd be looking at. Do you see what I mean? It wouldn't have to be like this real micro on individual tasks. It would be like an overall concept for each work group. And if they were to say, well, you know, we do want to do it via time and we do want to do it via gimbals, great, they can.
I would dispute.
Well, that's also something that popped.
No, go on, Peter.
Well, that's also something that popped up during yesterday's town hall temperature check on this. Would be like, don't fully depend on a system. Allow room for human input.
Yeah.
So if a work group is happy to, on a monthly basis, assess who is active and who is not active, sure. But this creates about half a week per person in that meeting. You know, we have a ton of work groups. So
You see, I'm confused because
I do see a lot of overhead there.
The micromanagement seems to be in the hours, not the contribution. Like if you came to this work group here, for example, SingularityNET Archive, and you ask us, Peter, what do we do? I can just provide you a list of what we do from the project board. That's our contributions. Okay. Now, if you ask us for the hours worked, that's a different question, and also it's micromanaging, because what you're asking us there is how many hours have all of you worked, and that becomes the meaning, in inverted commas, of what we've done. And that's not the meaning of what we do. What we do is our contribution, and it's not micromanaged. It's clear. It's clear what we do by looking at our project board. There's nothing that's unambiguous. So I'd ask other work groups, what do you do? You know, what are your activities? And you don't have to. The thing
is that all of them work through this treasury system, and there's zero overhead. We can just already have the input.
No, but what do they do? You know, do they just work hours? Is that what they do? You see what I mean? It seems to be the wrong way round for me. I think the question is, what do they produce? What do they work on? Do they work on bounties? Do they work on tool development? Do they work on Git books? You know, what is it they do? Yeah, not what hours do they work? And also, it's about.
I do get that. It's just, I don't know. Like from my side, it's perfectly fine if work groups are happy to have this recurring task of continuously assessing who is active and contributing. Sure, we can do that.
But,
yeah.
But isn't it apparent from who? I mean, I suppose from our perspective, we have a task issue, for example, of which is an activity, if you like, so something we are working on, and who works with us on that is who is assigned to it as well. Now, there should be an equivalent in all the work groups. Otherwise, you just got random people charging for hours. Yeah. So I would say, again, what do they do?
Well, you say you now completely diminish D-work into hours and nothing else. But tasks on D-work do have context. There is information on there. There's tags on what kind of work it is.
So you don't need micromanagement to get at that, do you, then? So now you're saying that you don't need to micromanage. Micromanaging has already been done because you can identify contribution by task. So which is it?
Yeah, well, I think that's the same I've been saying all the time. If people, right now, the system in D-work is not micromanagement, additional micromanagement to check who's contributing or not. We can just see it.
Yeah, I think maybe the confusion might be about D-work, because D-work could be like just a contribution system. Is this more of a question about the nature of the gimbal related to the hourly rate for a task? And I would say that's what's artificial here, because
it is.
I mean, I think what TiVo does for us is
I do get that. It's very straightforward, right? It's 1 hour as a gimbal. Sure, that's artificial for a lot of things and doesn't fully capture. However, I do feel it captures enough to make a distinction between random people and long-term contributors.
Yeah, I actually can think of a solution, actually, and I think maybe it's something that me and TiVo already done. Let's say we produce, we're working on an activity. Let's say, for the sake of argument, it's governance Git book, okay? And let's say we charge, say, 500 AGIX for it, okay? And I send that as I have a start date and an end date. Okay, and we may have some assignees to it, like say Andre, Vanessa, and me worked on it, let's say, but we haven't submitted any hours, and we can still submit that to DWork. Why? Because the amount we're asking for can just be converted to hours. I think that's what Thibaut's doing. So he's just saying, okay, you have 500 AJAX, which is equivalent in hours to an hourly rate. Is that really the conversion going on there? Because that would be the same thing, wouldn't it? It would just, because all a gimbal is an interpretation of contribution by value. Yeah. So you can convert that both ways. If I say to you, I've worked X amounts of hours, you can say, okay, that's worth X amounts of gimbals. If I say to you, the contribution I made is worth X amounts of gimbals, you can then convert that back into hours, even though however artificial that might be.
Yeah, but I would not be a fan of one place in the system using the other way around calculations and all the others using only one way calculation.
But there's no difference, is there? Because it's still valuing contribution based on hours and on our conversion for gimbal. It does no difference. I mean,
yeah, sure, but if you have a higher hourly rate, then the gimbal rate would also be higher, right? In this example.
But there's no need for us to do an hourly rate because we're providing an overall amount per our issue. All you have to do is a simple sum to say, okay, governance Git book costs say 500 AJAX. Let's convert that into gimbals, and that on the basis that a gimbal is an hourly rate. It kind of it also actually costs all our contributions on an equal basis, which is another philosophical point. So it means that whatever work that you do or a developer does or anything is worth the same.
Is that, yeah? It's nobody claims it's a perfect system. It's an estimate.
It's not only not a perfect system. There's a whole lot of things that need to be teased out here, Peter. Yeah, so I'd say that we are actually, if the question is, why do our creative group not do this? Well, we are doing it. We can do it because all you have to do is a sum. All you have to do is say, okay, take our activity or one of our activities, which we cost for, and convert it to our hourly rate to hours. And that's a sum. That's all you can do. Simple.
That could work. And I mean, already in the current setup, without these gimbals showing up properly, most of the people in the work group are perfectly showing fine as a long-term contributor. So it's just something that got raised, and
I suppose
the way you now describe it, it would work with the system, I feel.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that so I think if people are saying that about the archive work group, then if people want us to express our contribution cost in terms of hours, we can do that. We can do that through a conversion. Now, how meaningful that is another question. Sorry, Vanessa.
I don't know. I just put in the chat that converting it to hours feels like conceding to the idea that the amount of time you spend is the same as the value of your contribution. So even if it helps notionally, I'm a bit against that. If we're saying that no, we don't believe that the amount of time somebody spends is a fair reflection of the value of that time, we shouldn't then just notionally convert it to hours. I mean, I'm feeling a little bit like what I'm hearing is every other work group is fine with doing it by time except us. And I'm just wondering if
I can't speak for them, of course.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is like the sense I'm getting. And I'm just wondering if I know we've done it before, but maybe we need to do it again and explain why we see it as not particularly useful or valid to look at. I'm just thinking about things in the real world. I hate calling it that, but you know what I mean, in like ordinary jobs where people get paid by the hour and basically they're just sitting there clock watching for the last 2 hours of every day because they're like, well, it's not worth starting any time, but I do get paid until 5 o'clock, so I'll sit here and just twiddle my thumbs. Time is not a good basis for evaluating what contribution somebody has made. And I think maybe we need to have this discussion again or say it again and explain why we think that. Because then maybe those who are going, oh yeah, fine, we'll just do it by time, maybe they kind of think, oh, actually, yeah, maybe it's not the best way. Because I
Yeah,
sort of feel like, because we haven't been there and we haven't said it, maybe we
Oh,
just
that's
need to
true.
say it again.
I'm gonna have to
I would
check.
be very
Sorry.
open. Oh, sorry, go.
So I was just going to put a footnote to that. I think I kind of agree with you, Vanessa, but I think we were already accounting for time, because I need to check with Tivo, but I think Tivo asked me to.
Yeah, he did, but
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now.
No, I'm just saying it's artificial. Sorry, Peter. You go for it.
And so in my mind, there's two topics, right? I would be on board with having this discussion on what is a proper way of evaluating contributions. But I would hate for now this opening up of the ambassador role to from 9 people to 28 people, which this current draft version would do. I would really hate to delay that by 3 months before we've figured this topic out. I think we need to be practical here and acknowledge that it's. I have no problem acknowledging that only time is not the proper way of accounting for value created. I think most people would agree with that. But there's also the practical level where I don't know if now I'm not sure if we can solve this program wide and get everybody to agree with it.
I mean, I don't know if everybody has to agree with it. Is it not possible maybe to put something in place which is recognised as a temporary measure and sort of write it into it that we will have ongoing discussions? And also, would it not be possible
by
to say,
design.
well, why can't each work group have a conversation about how they want to assess value? And if they're going, yeah, we want to do it by time, then that's okay, they can do. But I don't think we should be aiming to get a way of assessing value to be the same for every work group,
Mm.
because it just feels
but
like that's kind of against the decentralized ethos that we're trying to live by.
Yeah, I think this. I
I
think
really think it's a separate discussion in a way.
maybe,
Like,
but Peter, your main concern about the question about whether we can, and here's how I would put it: how can we the archive work group can express its contribution in terms of hours. I know we are philosophically against that, Vanessa, but we can do it because it's just a sum. You know, we can. So it's not true to say that we cannot express what we do in terms of gimbals. We just haven't done that.
It's not just a sum though, because
Yeah,
time doing one thing is worth more than time doing another thing.
I know. But I mean, for the purposes of what Peter's asking for consistency, we can do that. It's just, I agree with you. It's completely meaningless. And also it raises questions about not what we do. I would say it raises questions about what DWork does. But we're not, I agree with you, Peter. Maybe we can't have this discussion now because it's a philosophical, it's also a kind of procedural discussion. But is that okay, Peter? We could, I know, Vanessa, you have the all caveats, but maybe we could just say, okay, we can express this in terms of gimbals, but it doesn't, all this means is that we're converting, say, a budget line into gimbals.
I would be really against trying to say that there is any conversion going on here, because I don't think time is a meaningful measure. So I would be up for the idea that this work group sits down every so often and does something like say, what do we think is valuable and who's done that? Or if we were to say, well, everybody who's attended meetings in our eyes has contributed, so we're just going to give everybody the same gimbals.
Yeah. I mean, another interesting thing is that, and this is an interesting point that you might consider, Peter, as well, is that let's take a task. So let's take governance Git book, for example, as again a theoretical, and let's say it's allocated to 3 different people, okay, and it has one cost line against it for 500 AJAX. Let's say Andre does 70% of the work, okay. Now, it would be micromanagement for us to actually cost that per person. So we allocate that money ourselves in our own treasury, not in in terms of the archive work group wallet. Okay, so just I mean, but if you could just converted that using the conversion and DWork, it just says everyone's working the same amount of time. Is this that amount of time that is costed? Yeah. So it just shows you how meaningless it is. It's just completely artificial.
well, in a way, archive would be the only work group having that issue, because all the other tasks are allocated on a one person, one task kind of basis.
Yeah, I would say that that puts to question the meaningfulness of their contribution. I don't want to be, because all it's saying is that a person has an hour of activity that is valued at this rate. That's all that's saying. It's not saying anything about their contribution. Do you see what I mean?
Indeed. But that, bottom line, to me personally, that would be enough to make this distinction again between a random person just popping in his first meeting and somebody who's to be seen as a long-term contributor.
So a long-term contributor could just be someone who's attended enough meetings over 6 months.
Well, I mean, it's all draft, and also to reiterate on what you mentioned, Vanessa, yes, all of this would be experimental, to be reviewed, open to change, not set in stone. That's pretty much how we do everything. So this would also have that.
And someone who,
but right now we made a combination of like a filter for Jimble tokens and a filter for AGIX tokens, which kind of implies, like, for example, meeting attendance is not rewarded with AGIX tokens. So
Yeah,
that's just sitting in meetings wouldn't get you there.
yeah, and no skill. There's no distinction between skills. So someone who has got incredible skills, say in development or specialist skills, gets the same amount as someone who just takes part in a discussion.
Yeah, and why not?
I
The
know.
world values developers more highly than
I know. I'm just putting it out. I'm just expressing it. I'm not making it a value.
No, I'm just saying, actually, yes, why not?
No, it's
But the
interesting.
thing is, like, we got rid of the idea of having like multiple levels of like, oh, you're disinvolved or you're disinvolved, now you get extra power or whatever. It's just a distinction between basically zero power or all the power.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because how will that incentivize people with specialist skills? That's what I'd say as a kind of caveat to that. Because, and I know this from other outside of this ecosystem, in other ecosystems where you get people like, particularly developers, the obvious example, who expect to be paid more because that's their incentive, if you
But
like.
there's so much packed into that, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Developers do expect to get paid more because they get paid more in the wider world, and it's just like, because there are all sorts of reasons why their skills are valued more than other kinds.
No, it's an interesting issue. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just pointing it out that
Yeah,
in the
no,
long,
I know.
in the long term, it'd be interesting how this plays out in SingularityNET, because I suspect you'll find incentive issues, Peter.
Because
Yeah,
you know
maybe.
that the other thing I was going to raise is the whole thing of like, yeah, developers do expect to get paid more because they get paid more anyway. But
No, but that's not
say
true.
like
That's
within
not true at
say
all.
like within Catalyst, what I'm seeing at the moment is people expecting to get paid a lot of money in funded projects for just building something that no one wants and that no one needs. And it's just like, what is the value of that? If we're going to really have a conversation about value, I think we should have that on a really ongoing basis. And maybe there should even be a regular space to talk about it.
We can. Just for a bit of context, the way deep funding is doing it is, I'm proper jealous of that. They do it very straightforward. They make a distinction: executional tasks, management tasks.
Right.
One is $10 an hour, one is $20 an hour. Doesn't matter what it is.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
again,
they do please do like, well, we expect people to kind of, be aligned with the mission and vision of deep funding and care. And if not, well, then not, go somewhere else. That's also fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying we should do that, but just for context. Like,
yeah, and also you're not getting a problem in deep funding. You're attracting highly skilled people in deep funding projects, aren't you? So, or aren't we? So,
well, there's the additional incentive, of course, of the whole funding situation.
Yeah.
Which,
and also, I suppose there's also the context of experimentation and innovation as well. I think there's a slight artificiality to the environment.
No, it's true.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, it's turned into quite an interesting. It is an interesting topic. It's one of my pet topics, I suppose. But and it really, I mean, I kept trying, really good to keep this live conversation. And I think what's really interesting is to be clear about what people mean. Okay, so what, for example, what D work actually does, and what it doesn't do. So And so if I suppose you boiled it down, Peter, that the only indication you have of long-term contribution is through hours worked. Is that really the only rule of thumb that you have?
No, not really. As I mentioned, it's a distinction between Jimbo tokens, or not a distinction, a combination of Jimbo tokens and AGIX tokens. And generally speaking, AGIX tokens would be awarded only for contributions, not participation. So that distinction is there.
Right. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So a distinction between contribution and participation. Then I suppose that raises the question of how, again, it comes back to your question of micromanagement, because how do you make a distinction between contribution and meaningful contribution and meaningful participation is another question, but anyway. Sorry, I'm getting off topic a bit.
I sort of feel like maybe out of this, maybe not now, but maybe in a future archives meeting, we need to come up with an idea of how this group would like to award Gimbal tokens. And I know we've been thinking about this whole thing of converting it to time, but I think we could do something more interesting. We could do something where we have a group conversation about, for this quarter, what do we think is valuable? And then anyone who does any of that gets an equal share of Gimbals. I just think that could be an interesting approach. I don't know what everybody else thinks about it. Maybe it's one for a future conversation, but I just think a group becomes what it is by who's there. And it's not necessarily the person who talks the most or the person who even does the most work behind the scenes. It's everyone who's there. And I sort of would like to explore approaches to recognizing contribution that is more invisible. So like this whole meeting, the fact that Slate is here, and I don't think you've been before, that changes the temperature and the feel of the conversation. You've contributed stuff in the chat, you've got things to say. I don't want to pick on you, Slate, sorry. But do you know what I mean? It's a different meeting than it would have been without you, and everybody's presence is valuable. So I don't know if I want to see us go, oh, you get more Gimbals because you've done this work,
No, but just to reiterate, the thresholds currently in the draft version of this experiment, putting some safeguards there, the thresholds are not high. They're looking at 12 hours over the past 6 months, which is 2 hours a month. So if you join one bi-weekly meeting, well, and then there's also the requirement of the equivalent of 6 hours of contributions with AGIX tokens.
Sure, I
So
mean, that's
I would
their
really
way
warn
of
against
looking at it.
putting too much effort into getting the Gimbals properly correct. Like that might also be overkill.
That's their way of looking at it, and that's fine, and I'm cool with that, but I don't think it works here.
Oh, that's fine but just want to warn you to not put too much effort into it in a way. Like, yeah.
I suppose
I don't think having a conversation at the top of a quarter about what do we value, what things do we see as valuable, because we might say that yes, we think that attending meetings is valuable, we might not. The other thing that occurred to me actually was like crossing over with things that have happened in onboarding work group. We talked about how somebody gets the status of a member. Is it maybe partly about membership? Like if somebody gets membership of a group by whatever process that group has decided, then they're a contributor.
also related to that is, what about responsibility? I'll take the supervisory council, for example, Peter. They may, or some similar body, okay, someone who has a certain responsibility. In other words, when an issue comes up, they have to be on hand to answer it. That is a contribution, even if that's not fulfilled. Would you agree? So even if they,
Sure.
let's say you have someone on call, okay, to an emergency, okay, and they never called, should they be not be paid? Do you see what I mean? So there's like contribution is about responsibility, as Vanessa points out, it's about even about silent participation, or participation, like as I say, people just put stuff in chat and stuff like that, which is this wouldn't be captured by the DWork system.
Oh, that's true, and that's even more reinforcement for also including the human measure instead of relying 100% on the system.
Yeah.
And I fully acknowledge that. Yeah.
But Vanessa, I mean, we are kind of already, as I said, we're already agreeing to convert our budget lines into hourly rates through TiVo's conversion to gimbals. Do we not? We're not going to start refusing to do that, are we?
Yes.
We are. Oh, okay. But Vanessa
No,
says
I mean,
Vanessa says no. Okay.
I really don't like it, but
No, it's a
and
compromise.
I just think, you know what we were saying before, Peter, about how this is an ongoing conversation and nothing's set in stone even when we do it that way. I just think the more we agree to do something that is kind of contradicting our beliefs about this, it then undermines our argument, and it means that the discussion doesn't stay live. I'm not trying to be contrarian. I'm just saying, if we say we don't really think that measuring contribution by time is a good idea at all, but all right, you can do it, then where are we?
Yeah, fair. I mean, if you can convince everybody to, for every task, assess how much value was added, and then the
No,
threshold is
no.
based on
If
value,
they want
that's
to,
fine.
that's fine. But I think there should be space for work groups to not do that and to be able to say, well, look, we're going to assess people's contribution and therefore the gimbals they get in
There's
whatever
also,
way.
there's also, Peter, you're using often an implicit reference to the majority of people. This is only the majority within the ambassadors program. I would argue that the majority of working people, for example, on open source projects like GitHub, do it completely the other way around. They do it through the nature of the contribution, not the hours worked, particularly if you look at open source culture. So I would say, ambassadors, why are you doing it this way? Is it just because you are you doing it this way just because you found this tool called DWork which tells you to do this way?
Yeah. God, your
Okay.
tools shape what you do.
And that's all you're used to, or have you read a book about open source or been involved in the open source projects where actually it's all about contribution, the nature of the contribution, not the time you put in?
I mean, can I just ask also, I know I'm cutting over the answer you were going to give there, Peter, but you were saying earlier that it's a kind of on or off thing. It's like you are a long-term contributor or you're not. And it's not necessarily about, oh, you're more of a long-term contributor than somebody else. So if it is on or off, then measuring time seems to be counterintuitive for that, because it doesn't matter how much more time you've spent than someone else. It's like, have you spent some time?
No, but wait, you make it sound like we only measure time to establish whether somebody's a long-term contributor. That's not it's the other way around. We just need some input on establishing who is, and we have the system, so we can use it.
Well, okay, well, I suppose the question is, why do you want to establish whether someone's a long-term contributor or not?
Well, that goes back to opening up the current ambassador role, which creates this elitist hierarchy feeling, which we want to get rid of and open up to more people.
Okay, so you establish long-term. Is the reason why you want to establish long-term contribution is to view the people who are recognized as that as differently?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I view them as differently. Well, yes, if compared to just a random person, a newbie popping in.
So they would get what would be different? Would they get paid differently? Would they have decision-making powers?
It would be, well, for example, governance on like implementing a policy like a conflict resolution or budget approval or these kind of votes, which right now, by default, we turn to this because we have this role. We turn to ambassador role, which is elitist.
It's like a rethink of ambassadorship, isn't it? It's like it's more for. What if we had a threshold? We said, as a whole community, we say, what kind of level of engagement do we think is enough for this quarter, to have you considered a contributor? And then if somebody meets that threshold, that's it. And then any work they do after that doesn't have to be time logged.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that's what we're doing.
Well, no, you're not.
I would say,
You're logging all of the time that people spend. It doesn't stop once they reach a threshold. They're still getting more gimbals and being seen. And, I don't quite know for why.
also the way you express it seems incredibly centralizing and retroactive, because you're kind of like disincentivizing involvement, right? Because if your contribution is related to decision making, why should you get involved in decision making? Where, if you look at, again, the open source example works because you are able to contribute with responsibility and decision at any point. Your decision is related to your capability. In other words, your knowledge, not the hours you put in. Okay, so we're creating a system of mediocrity, essentially. So people who are rewarded just simply for the time they put in, not for the knowledge they have.
I guess in a way, sure, that's true. However, so the current status is this group of 9 people with the ambassador role.
Yeah, so they're dictating everything. These 9 people, great, and So I'm not saying they're mediocre or anything, but that's it. That they really want. I mean, the objective. If the objective is to open it up, you want to go the other direction, don't you? So you want to. I mean, again, I kind of was already suggesting maybe get rid of the ambassador role altogether. I think it's more about the nature of how do you ascertain whether someone is capable to make a decision, I suppose. Not the sense, rather than the question of what track record does lend this person authority to make a decision. Do you see what I mean?
Well, if you have suggestions on a system how to do that, be very welcome to introduce that to me, because I don't have a better one.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an ongoing, it's just putting it out there.
Yeah, fair. No, yeah, well, it's really intended as an experiment to open up that role, or rename it, like getting rid of the role and calling it long-term contributor or core member or whatever.
Yeah,
like the naming is secondary.
Okay, are we? This has been a great discussion, by the way, people. Are we winding down now?
Well, we've got 10 minutes left on the clock, so I'm just wondering what we gonna do with that really interesting discussion. Are we gonna, I don't know, take some of these thoughts into some other part of the ecosystem and raise them, or are we just gonna go, that was interesting?
Well, I suppose there's a decision. Well, there's no decision item. We're going to continue. So what you heard, Peter, about the archive work group doesn't express what we do in gimbals. It's not strictly correct. We can do that. But I suppose we're raising a protest there, Vanessa, are we?
No, I don't see it as a protest. I just say we maybe need to think about how we'd like to do it and propose that and say this could fit into the existing system.
Right.
So
I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, again, there is room for human input. So yeah.
I mean, there is metadata per gimbal, isn't there?
Yes, there is, absolutely.
Is Andre still here? Sorry, I can't see my screen.
Yes. So sorry, say again, there is what in the metadata?
Metadata for a gimbal transaction.
Yeah.
So you could, so in theory, you could batch that, couldn't you? So for example, you could take, let's say you wanted to, we sent in the fund request from an export of SingularityNET project board, which is like a spreadsheet, and each budget line would have, say, 100 AJAX, 500 AJAX, whatever. And we just said and then we also could have the people involved, like the assignees as well. So you could just then do a batch so work out which gimbals are going to which people from the amount of. So all you're doing is saying, okay, this amount of money is being divided equally between these assignees, and it's assumed that that is equivalent to this amount of hours worked. And then you would run that as a batch, and then in the metadata you would just put the task description, like governance, Git book, or tool development.
Yeah, we could
Yeah. And that-
add something in the metadata.
And that's how we would solve the micromanagement, Peter. that gives you a description of contribution per gimbal.
Yeah, we would have to make adjustments to our treasury system because that's
right.
the only thing, but it's something that can be done.
Yeah. But again, it's about the nature of the system. I mean, because that is really the meaning that provides a meaning to because really, so let's take, if you've worked on governance Gitbook and you're paid, say 100 AJAX and that's converted into gimbals, then that assumes that you've worked X amount of hours on that, doesn't it? So, yeah. So all we're going to ask is that the governance Gitbook or whatever is added to the metadata for that transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it already might be even right now with when you put the fund request.
Yeah.
You do put that on dwork, right?
Yeah. Well, the way I've been doing it recently, I think the last time I agreed with TiVo was a kind of, as I said, a compromise, which all I do is I export the project board that you're looking at now, and that comes out like a spreadsheet, and it gives you a cost line per task or issue. And then I think and also gives you the assignees, I think, as well. So then that I think all TiVo does, he just converts that to gimbals, to work out the gimbal payment. And that's presumably just based on taking the AJAX amount and dividing that equally amongst the assignees and assuming an hourly rate. Yeah, that's how you would do that calculation. And that's exactly the same. That's just basically saying that we're assuming that, X amount of hours was spent by Andre or Vanessa or whatever on me based on that cost. It's no reflection at all of the time that we're actually spending on it. It's determined by the cost. You see what I mean? So actually we're misrepresenting our contribution, if you like. But we're still answering the question.
Yeah, I believe it would. For sure, it would qualify all of you above the 2 hour per month.
Yeah, but also
threshold.
it also highlights the absurdity of the system a little bit, don't you think, Peter? But yeah, it does answer the question because it shows you the nature of our contribution as determined by gimbals. Yeah, but by assuming an hourly rate conversion of a cost that we estimated that wasn't costed according to hourly rates in the first place. Yeah. So I would just highlight that. Yeah, for example, take bounties. Okay, so take bounties. I don't know what we costed that. We costed that $400 or whatever. I mean, maybe we will review that, but we've been working on that for months. I mean, our discussion on that has been extensive, and there's been if we actually costed that per hour, can you imagine how much that might cost? So it's $400 per, say, 2 or 3 people. Okay, so that means if you just did a calculation, let's say we spent another few months on it, that means we just spent a few hours or a few days on it, which is completely unrealistic. But it's more cost effective for the program to cost in terms of contribution rather than hours. Because if we costed in terms of hours, then God knows how much it would cost.
Yeah, I get it. I mean,
yeah. So that's another question: is are we minimizing contribution by determining contribution in our hours? So are we disincentivizing contribution?
if people really want to join the ambassador program to have voting power on policy implementations, sure, they can game it. But yeah, I mean, would anybody really do that?
But I think again, it's incentivizing piecework. It's not incentivizing contribution. So, for example, what we want to do is to get people involved in things, presumably in the ambassadors program. We want them to get involved in AGI and governance and all that sort of great stuff. Yeah, we want them to get involved in that. We don't want them to get involved in in systems of cookie cutting. Yeah, which is what's happening, it seems to me. The major question that needs to be answered is, and people need to be discussing, is I'm working on this great governance project, or I'm working on this token, and or I'm working on this AGI. Not on my not main. That needs to be the main discussions. Okay, not the main discussions shouldn't be, I've spent this amount of hours and I'm going to get rewarded in this. If there's too much of that going on, then that's not fulfilling the mission of the ambassadors program, in my view. And that's driven by how people are able to participate and what their expectations of participation are. So, end of lecture there. But yeah, we're coming up to the hour. Vanessa, do you have any last thoughts?
So many.
I
No, it's been a really interesting conversation, and thanks to those who have stuck along and listened and contributed.
I'll just stop the share, and I'll stop recording. We can continue, discussing after I've stopped the recording. But I'll end the recording for the sake of this meeting now, with a minute to go. Hold on a sec.